three very interesting words: ideas, imagination, and inspiration. Geetam also consists of three very powerful ideas. Gandhi is an idea, technology is an idea, a child of idea, and management is an idea. I always feel very happy to be here because I get both ideas and inspiration when I am on the Geetam campus. I'm thankful to you for the kind invitation. Triple I it is. In fact, people, young ones, rush to Geetam for triple E. But it's a very interesting age. The age of acronyms, the age of brevity, the age of humor. Triple I you have assigned to me to talk on. Triple E is the most sought after course in engineering perhaps. Nandan Nilekani, his plan was to have for India triple E: equity, efficiency, and effectiveness for excellence in the country. I read a sociologist's very interesting article in which he said this is an age of triple E: entertainment, excitement, and exhaustion. Everything is entertainment. Watching television is entertainment. Going to cricket match is entertainment. And then the excitement, will he get the 100? Will he do this? Will he do that? And then finally, exhaustion by the time the day ends. So idea is a very powerful concept you have chosen to reflect upon. It was Rabindranath Tagore who wrote first on the idea of India. It's a beautiful metaphor, idea of India, 1921. Sunil Khilnani, one of the most renowned thinkers and social scientists, now I think based in Cambridge, UK, he has written a book called Idea of India. It was Cardinal Newman who wrote a book, who wrote on the idea of university. And it was Newman who gave a challenge to the teachers when he said, the most important challenge for a teacher is to put the sharpest edge on the bluntest razor. There is never a bad student, there is always a bad teacher, in my opinion. Because a teacher who says, my students are not good, but I am very good, is not a teacher at all. A vice chancellor or rector would never say, my staff are weak, I am strong. He would never say that. A prime minister cannot afford to say, I am very good, I am very honest, but the country is not. That's not the way things should happen. Therefore, the very concept of idea is a very powerful idea. And I have become a great admirer of this particular concept because it was a great Socrates who, when young people like you, when they went to him and said, oh great master of wisdom, tell us how to think, tell us something about knowledge, Socrates very modestly said, I don't know anything. And the students didn't let go of him. They said, no, master, you are cheating us, you know everything, please tell us something, please give us wisdom. And the great master of philosophy said, the only thing I know is I know nothing. That was Upanishadic wisdom. How many people can say the only thing I know is I know nothing? But then underlying this wonderful paradoxical statement was profound philosophical truth. When he said the only thing I know is I know nothing, it ultimately led to the spirit of inquiry. That spirit of inquiry led to science, the birth of science. That birth of science led to technology. Students often debate whether science came first or technology came first. That's a different thing. I'm not a student of either science or technology. I leave it to the distinguished gathering of young, bright students of engineering and technology to sort it out. It's not my domain at all. And therefore, when Socrates, he started this. He gave the idea to Plato, his disciple. And Plato transferred the idea to his disciple, Aristotle. Aristotle perfected the concept of idea, perfected the theory of science. And for Aristotle, a little while ago, I was really interested to hear my young friend talk about democracy, failures, politicians, etc., etc. Politics is never dirty, only politicians are dirty. Because Aristotle called it the master science, Plato called it the noblest art, and Mahatma Gandhi said politics is a means of service, a means of paropkar, not a means of self-aggrandizement. It all depends on the people who handle politics. 60 years ago, being a politician was an honor. 60 years ago, going to jail was an honor when Gandhiji was in our midst. So many people went to jail. Today, people go to jail. And those who should not be in jail are in jail, and those who should be in jail are in high public offices, some of them at least. That is what is happening in India today. Politics is never dirty by itself. As somebody said, politics is ultimately the art of making the impossible possible. That's exactly what politics is about. That's what Gandhiji did. Now therefore, when you look at these examples, ideas, imagination and inspiration, I'm very glad you have chosen this TEDx. I congratulate the organizers for one very simple reason. You have chosen today the 23rd of February. 24th of February, tomorrow, is the 58th birth anniversary of the father of digital revolution, Steve Jobs. And you know, and Steve Jobs' life is a source of inspiration. His ideas continue to inspire us. His ideas led to technology about which you are talking day in and day out. That is Steve Jobs. A man who sold paper, a man who made garlands and took them along with him in a boat some 80 or 75 years ago in a small place called Rameshwaram. That man traveled from Rameshwaram to Rashtrapati Bhavan as the President of India, APJ Abdul Kalam. And he gave a beautiful equation. He gave a beautiful equation. I quote Kalam for one simple reason, that he created ideas, he created powerful technology, and he always loved the youth. I remember very well when he came to Visakhapatnam, I happened to be there, he went to school to talk to the children. And the heads of the institutions, they all came, director of NSTL, chairman of ISRO, so many people were there because the President of India had come there to talk to the students. And you know what Kalam said? Mr. President, thank you. Mr. Director, good morning. Now all of you leave. And then immediately he went into the classroom, spoke to the children, all young, bright minds, for 20 minutes or so, and then he left without any huff or puff. He's quietly left the place. And after a little while, I happened to talk to a girl. Normally we would ask a girl, bright girl, she was a boy or a girl, would you become an engineer? Would you become a doctor? Two very favorite professions. And the girl simply said, I will become a space scientist because I'm inspired by Kalam. This is the power of imagination. This is the power of inspiration that can be. My young friends, you know very well that we are passing through the fourth technological revolution according to Peter Drucker. The first technological revolution took place when man started writing 5,000 years ago. The second technological revolution took place when paper was invented 2,000 years ago. The third technological revolution took place 15th century, John Gutenberg, when the printing press was invented. And today the fourth technological revolution, dominated by fantastic technology which I can't understand, I can't operate for that matter. That is why when the gentleman came and said, will you make PowerPoint presentation PPP, I said, I am unable to locate power in India. I don't know where power is, and PowerPoint presentation is beyond me, I said. And therefore remember, Today we're passing through the digital revolution, the technological revolution. What is going to happen tomorrow, nobody knows. Because what is latest today will become obsolete tomorrow. Therefore, please remember, whenever I go to talk to students and teachers, I begin in all humility with those three beautiful questions raised by philosopher J.K. Jiddu Krishnamurti. He asked students once three very simple but profoundly relevant questions. Why are you studying? What are you studying? How are you studying? I asked my teacher colleagues, why are you teaching? What are you teaching? How are you teaching? Because, and if you say, I don't teach because I don't get the UGC scale, you are not a teacher at all. The other day, I was standing in the bank, in the State Bank of India, to which I go once a year, because my mother still gives me food, the Andhra University pension, just to check. And then a lady professor very kindly accosted me and said, sir, you are still active, you are still talking, you are still writing, you are still lecturing. There is a theory beautifully invented by Galbraith, I shall talk about it later. But please remember, then she said, sir, you are still active. Then I said, yes, ma'am, I am being given pension by the government, not to lie in bed, but to do something that I can do. I remember Mokshagundam Visvesvaraya, the father of technology, the first professor of technology in Andhra University. At the age of 94, he traveled in an aircraft and went to inspect the Farakka barrage construction. And when somebody said, oh, at 94, you're flying and still supervising operations, he said, I want to work till my last breath, because work never kills, only worry kills. Therefore, this is the type of thing. So now we come to the most important thing. Today, my young friends, this is the age of brevity. This is the age of electronic linguistics. You are concerned with communication. You are concerned with leadership. You are concerned with change. But then an American professor very beautifully described communication as who says what to whom with what effect. What a beautiful quotation. What is leadership? Leadership is who is leading whom from where to where. I thought, that's a beautiful definition. I thought Mahendra Singh Dhoni is a beautiful leader because he leads from the front. We have a tendency to pick holes in a person who is failing, whose team is failing. He is a wonderful person. He is a leader. A leader is one, please remember, look at the difference. When the team wins a cup, Dhoni stands behind and asks Virat Kohli or somebody to hold the cup. That's leadership. Whereas a politician in France, it seems a political leader was running after a crowd, a huge crowd was running for something. And the politician was running after the crowd. And somebody asked him a question, why are you running after the crowd? He said, because I am their leader, he said. That's the kind of leadership we have in India. Therefore, please remember, technology is everywhere. I want to ask you one simple question. Please bear in mind, management and technology are going to live longer than engineering, according to somebody. Demand for engineering courses may decline, but demand for management and technology, these two courses will continue to thrive for long. That's what somebody said. I'm not an expert in the field. But please remember, technology should be a servant, never a master. Technology should be a servant, never a master. A beautiful book has been written by Nicholas Carr, in which he raises a question, a very interesting question. Technology is changing the way our brains operate. Can minds operate at high speed as high-speed data processing machines? Knowledge has moved from the Platonic realm of reason, experience, and perception to commodity or data that can be applied by man or machine. Are we feeling computers or thinking human beings? This is a question that he has raised. Technology should be our servant. And therefore, the most important point I wish to make before I sign off, my time I think is coming to an end. I wish I had more time to talk to you. I wish I had more time to learn from you. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm privileged to be here this afternoon for one very important reason. This is the 150th birth anniversary year of Swami Vivekananda. He was born He was born on the 12th of January. Look at this beautiful sequence of events. 1857, we had a war for independence, we had a struggle for independence, and that collapsed. India was traumatized. 1861, Tagore was born. 1863, Vivekananda was born. 1869, Gandhi was born. 1872, August 15th, Aurobindo was born. Now these four spiritual leaders literally fertilized the landscape of India, transformed India in slumber, transformed India that lay dormant into a nation that would perhaps dictate the agenda for world peace. Because when Vivekananda went to Chicago and addressed it there, Professor Barrows received him and told a gathering of distinguished professors, I welcome this monk from India to the youngest nation from the oldest civilization. Vivekananda was the monk. Youngest nation was America. The oldest civilization was India. And he said all the professors put together are not equal to this monk from India. That's what he said in 1893. And now why I mention Swami Vivekananda, I want to just two very important points for your kind consideration before I sign off. Inspiration comes from the past. Inspiration comes from the present. Inspiration comes from the younger generation. I am here particularly for one reason, not to make a speech, not to earn your plaudits, but to pose a challenge before the younger generation today. India, ladies and gentlemen, is a superpower, is a global power in 5 areas according to experts. Number 1, no country in the world has so many young people. Shashi Tharoor, before he became the Union Minister for HRD, he wrote a book, Pax Indica, last year. Some of you might have seen it. He said, by 2020, the average age of Indian will be 28. And India will have 550 million people under 28, all of you. You will shape not only the destiny of India, you will shape the destiny of the world according to Shashi Tharoor, the youngest population. Secondly, India has the highest English-knowing people. Highest English-knowing people in the world. Highest English-knowing people, more than United States of America for that matter. We have, what kind of English, that's a different thing. Because when Telugu speak English, they call it Tinglish. When Bengali speak English, they call it Binglish. When Gujarati speak English, that's English. But English is spoken by, understood by 35 crores of people out of 120. And then thirdly, India is a leading power in telecom. No country, it has overtaken China according to Shashi Tharoor telecom. Fourthly, software. And fifthly, rather dangerous to talk, cricket. We are a superpower. We are a superpower in cricket not because we win cups, but remember, when I was young and playing cricket, I was very sad that Australians, Englishmen, South Africans, there are a few New Zealanders, they refused to come to India because of a very dirty country, very poor country, etc., etc. Today, 600 of them are standing in line and asking for permission to play in IPL. Therefore, that's why I say. Now, that is why a challenge has also been posed. Mike Loftus of UK raised a question. If these 550 million young people of India are not endowed with skills, are not employable, India may become a very dangerous country, and some of them may take to extremism and violence. That's a different thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to just bear in mind one appeal made by Swami Vivekananda. He said, give me 200 bright young persons, I shall change the face of India. Today, 550 bright young persons who can change the face of India. The only problem with India is, Vivekananda said, what is the difference between America and India? Vivekananda said, Americans are collectively good, Indians are individually good. And then he also said, Indians are great believers in Gita. Gita says, be neutral towards the fruits of work. Indians are neutral towards work itself. That is it. Therefore, this for the younger generation, kindly remember, 550 million people, the day will not be far off when you, inspired by Swami Vivekananda, transform India and lift the 35 crores of people who live below the poverty line. I am very sure the younger generation of sitting here in this wonderful auditorium will certainly bear in mind that this is a very important occasion for us, when tomorrow is the birth anniversary of Steve Jobs, and today we celebrate the 150th birth anniversary of Vivekananda and Geetam, Gandhi, Technology and Management. God bless you. Thank you very much.